Okay, guys, so I want to go through how you could use just data to determine whether or not you had a zero first or second order reaction. I'm going to show you how you can do it if you have a graphing calculator, kind of a shortcut. Um, I'll also show you how you can do it by hand. So you can still do anything on the AP test or one of my tests without the use of a graphing calculator, but sometimes the graphing calculator can provide you a shortcut. So if you would turn your graphing calculator on, and here's our data, and we're provided the reaction A produces B, and some time data as well as concentration data. And so we're going to go to our stat button, stat, and then click edit, and it gives you some lists. And in L1, I'm going to input all of my time data. So 0, 50, 100, 200, and 300. In L2, I'm going to enter all of my concentration data. 0.01, 0.00787, 0.00649, 00481, and 0.00380. Then for L3, I'm going to scroll all the way up so that L3 is highlighted. I'm going to force L3 to take the natural log of all of the concentrations, because remember, if I plot time versus concentration and I get a straight line, that's zero order. If I plot time versus natural log of concentration and I get a straight line, that is first order. And then if I plot time versus 1 over concentration and get a straight line, that would be second order. So if you highlight L3 and then hit your natural log button, and then in your alpha lock, you should be able to access L2. So I go second and then hit that L2 button. What it's going to do, it's going to pre-calculate the natural log of all of the list of L2. I'm going to go over to list 4, and I'm going to do the same thing. Highlight L4, but for L4, I'm going to be putting in 1 over concentration, which is 1 over L2. So I just define L4 to equal 1 divided by list 2, and it does that math for me. So the next thing I'm going to do is, now that I have my 4 lists, I'm going to go to stat plot. So second, stat plot, and turn all your plots off except for the first one. I'm going to access the first plot, make sure it's turned on. You can make it a scatter or a line plot, it doesn't matter. I like the scatter. And for X lists, I'm going to define that as time, which is my L1. But for my Y axis, I want to define as concentration, which was my L2. So I'm going to do L2. So now I've defined my X axis as time and my Y axis as concentration. And then I'm going to hit graph. And zoom 9 will take you to wherever it is in the coordinates. And you can see that when I do time on the X and concentration on the Y, I get a curved line. All this tells me is that it is not zero order. It does not tell me that it is first or it is second. It just tells me that it's not zero order. So I'm going to go back to my stat plot, and I'm going to plot list 1 for time versus list 3, which was natural log of concentration. So I'm going to change that to L3. And then again, graph, zoom, 9. And again, I see that I get kind of a curved relationship. It's not a linear relationship. And I'm looking for something that produces a straight line. All this tells me it is not first order. So then again, I'll try stat plot. Redefine my y-axis as L4. And then graph it, zoom 9. And here I see a linear relationship when I plot 1 over concentration versus time, which tells me that this is second order. So the way you can do this without a graphing calculator is go ahead and set up a table where you identify what is concentration, what is recalculate natural log of concentration. You can do that. So I could change my table and add a column that said natural log. Oopsie. Oh, damn. Natural log of concentration and write those values down. And then I could add a column that was 1 over concentration and write those values down. And remember, in the integrated rate laws from those notes, slope was equal to K, and sometimes it was positive K and sometimes it was negative K. But when K is constant, that's how we know we've determined whether we have 0 first or second order. So then to do this by hand, if you just do rise over run, and remember the rise is going to be the either concentration, natural log of concentration, or 1 over concentration. So if you do rise over run, and of course run is time, if you find rise over run over a series of these data points and you get a consistent value for all of those or a consistent slope, then you know you've identified whether it's 0 first or second order. But using the graphing calculator kind of makes it a bit of a shortcut for you if you have access to it. But you can still calculate everything by hand.